Welcome to our Lasting Love series, Making It Last or Made to Last. Welcome, Coach Londi.
Hi, Coach B. Hi, everybody. How are you, family?
We are super, we are super. We had our Zulu Love series last time, and now we are just recapping on the topic and the different stages in the relationship, love cycle, and then we're moving on to stage one today.
Perfect.
Super. So in our
So
last
last
discussion,
week,
yes.
you can go ahead, Coach.
No, you can continue.
Okay. So I just wanted to recap on our introduction last week, where we looked at how we go into our relationships with the intention to become
Mm,
one, to be a unit, and we termed it the journey to one. And we want to encourage that we actually approach our relationships as that, as a journey to becoming one, where we get out of
yeah,
this habit and this notion that we just need to think, oh, this is what I would love my relationship to be like, and then think in the next blink of an eye, we will be there. So that we consider and we open ourselves up to going through the motions, going through the different stages, and we walk in with knowing that part of the expectation, if we insist on having expectation, is we expect it to be a journey. We expect it to be an experience of many layers, of many multitudes, and of different experiences and different levels of being and consciousness for us as individuals and as the unit in our relationship journey as we make it last.
true, true. One thing I see that we've done also with this one is to add the duration, plus minus of each stage. For example, looking at merge where we are at 0 to 3 years, and I've been going through some comments in that we met within 6 months, we married, but in the married, we are now going either to stage 5, hopefully in our own mindset, but the relationship is not there yet in terms of our ability to merge, our ability to understand each other. So what really should be, I'm going to call it the duration coach for a lack of a better estimate in terms of how well do we know each other before we say, this is it, this is the person I want to be with for the rest of my life in the marriage stage.
So, and this is probably the most underestimated and undervalued stage
Mm.
of a relationship, because
Mm-hmm.
of that set intention to say we are going into this to experience a happily ever after, we kind
Mm.
of underestimate the value of getting to know each other and allowing the relationship to morph and take different forms,
Yeah.
because there is no escaping the fact that at this stage of merge, a lot of what is happening is hormonal. A lot of what is happening is in the in love experience, where we are just
Mm-hmm.
high on infatuation. And
Yes.
so we are out of our sober senses, so to speak. We are really not sober at this stage. And so when we rush to decision making and we make life changing and life altering decisions at this stage, that is
Yes.
when we suffer the peril of, how often people say they fear marriage because people change when they get
Yes.
into after getting married. And
Yes.
so it creates those type of norms and those type of society um, formed perceptions and
Perceptions.
expectations to
Yes.
say when we get into marriage people change, but that's not the
Mm.
case. We were going, it's not that we have changed because of the marriage, it's just that we are now at level 2, where we are at recognizing the differences between the two of us. And when we recognize the differences between the two of us, and we have already made that commitment and sanctified it and committed to ourselves and had witnesses come in. We now have this added pressure to try and keep up with expectations that are now extending beyond just who we are and beyond the relationship itself. So it's that part of, we really, really, really need to be conscious and just be deliberate about allowing ourselves to fully merge and fully form. Because in the same way that in order to get to a butterfly, the caterpillar needs to be all these different things first. We also need to be all these different things and go through our own metamorphosis in order for us to fully bloom into these people that are capable of experiencing, that are capable of sharing, that are capable of giving and receiving the love that we know deep down inside we are capable of, and that we yearn and we long.
True. And the one thing which I see as part and parcel of this stage is confusing closeness for connection. And you said the biology is taking over. We are feeling things we haven't felt. Actually, we even love the, I've never felt like this before. This is a new high. And in that new high, what do we then miss in really looking into, are we connecting, or is just we are high and being close?
That's a great question, Coach, and I'm glad that you actually picked it up, because at this stage, I call it the erotic love. Like it's almost like I'm saying erotic love, and I want us to all think of our very first love experience, like your first, the one person that they say you're not gonna forget. Yes, think about them. So that was erotic love. And generally, what erotic love is it's very high on passion. It requires the vibrations are high. And for that reason, and for that reason and that intensity, it makes it very hard to sustain. And one of the reasons and the purposes that erotic love serves very well is the purpose to like snap us back into life, get us to feel alive again, if especially if you've been feeling like, and you when you get in the in love zone, it's like, oh, life is just brightened up. So you like literally at that point in your life where you just need a kick and an infusion of passion, color, all things, just intensity. And because of that intensity and the passion that that experience is about, it becomes very hard to maintain that level of vibration. And so when we are there, we want to be close to each other because we want that static and that vibe needs to keep us there. I can't stay there by myself. I constantly need you pulling me up and keeping me there together. So it's like a magnetic effect. We need to be close in order for that magnetic effect to work. So that's the closeness part of it. The connection is more of consciousness, is at a consciousness level. And when we are at merge and we are in this closeness, driven, fueled by proximity, wanting to be attached to each other, there's more need and for attachment than there is the consciousness of the connection.
Yes.
So when we are unaware of that, that's when we trip and fall and we get to that stage of it feels, because it feels good. There's no denying it. And there shouldn't be a need to deny how good it feels.
Yeah.
There is a
It's
need
amazing,
to acknowledge.
actually.
There is a need, however, to acknowledge and give it time to acknowledge that this isn't as good as it gets, because we also have this fear, because of the fears and everything. We're thinking this is as good as it gets. If I don't grab onto it now, I might lose it. And when we act out of fear, we jump to making decisions that alter our lives and that quickly take us off the high, and then we slip into denial and confusion.
Super. Now, on the what to do in this stage, you've spoken on the passion in terms of how to keep it at that level, but the most important one, which all of us hate to admit and to acknowledge, is the red flags. The red flags that start to show here, and how do we balance what we listen to, what we take counsel on, versus what we think and want this thing to be?
Let's first, Jay, just clarify how do you know when it's a red flag?
Yeah.
You know, the moment you have to have a conversation with yourself, by yourself, and have to convince yourself
Yes.
about something in the relationship, about the other person, about yourself. The moment you are uncomfortable with having the conversation with the person you are involved with, that's a red flag. The moment you
Yeah.
feel like you need to have this conversation with you and you only, and have you be the judge, the jury, the convincer, the cheerleader, the everything,
The
immediately
victim. Yeah.
know that that's a red flag. You need to pay attention. So, getting to deal with red flags, number one, awareness, consciousness. Can we just allow yourself to be in awareness when you're feeling that the high is low, you are no
Yeah.
longer there?
Mm.
Acknowledge it and allow it to be. Be okay with the fact that the high is no, the ecstasy, you are off the ecstasy now. Be okay with that and allow yourself to see consciously and at
Right.
that sober level, whatever it is at that time. Because the funny thing is, why we confuse closeness to connection is because
Yeah.
immediately when that person walks into the room, you go back. And that's the problem. Immediately when they walk into the room while you are at that stage, the butterflies start again. Oh, good, I'm fuzzy inside. Oh, but I can definitely overlook that. This feeling makes up for everything else that I feel when he's not here or when she's not here. So immediately when you get yourself into that trap, or into that experience rather, then take stop and pause. Do the one
Yeah.
thing that we human struggle to do, which is to pause and reflect.
That's true. And the part where we need to listen to other people's views about our relationship, because all of us don't trust the intention in clause of what the other person is saying. Because sometimes, yes, the hope for what this is overrides our own logical analysis. But how do we create a space where we can receive that counsel in a way that is pro us and pro relationship and pro growth?
The best thing here would be to remember that there was life before this person. There was life
Jesus.
before this relationship experience. Like, really, you meet a grown ass person, fully formed human being, and you're thinking this is the beginning of life, but you have been living your life all
All
along.
along. Mm.
And you had systems in place, you had relationships in place, you found the fulfillment that you are now getting from this person elsewhere. So
Yeah.
why do you need to now dump all of that for the sake of this one person? So it's also coming back to the understanding of this whole notion of soulmates and wanting to have one soulmate in your
The
entire life
right.
that must come, that must come up, packaged as the right person, your other half, your better half, all these other nice words that we use. Just
Mm-hmm.
remember to keep yourself open. Remember that there was life before this person. And what was
And there will
life
be
like
life
before this
after.
person? Hmm. Then you'll be open to
That's
other
tough.
people's views.
Yeah. That's I'm just thinking now there'll be life after, but people don't want the after.
Mm.
Sometimes we fear the after so much that we don't allow ourselves to be honest that we are capable of living after, through to the red flags, the things that we really are not aligned to and we lived before. So for me, I think it's just accepting that there is life after anything.
Mm, mm. And it's that fear that drives us to close off from other
Yes.
people's views because we are saying, and you do recognize, because it's not like you don't know. Anyways, when we communicate and we ask for other people's opinions, we are wanting most of the time to validate what we are already
Mm-hmm.
thinking. And we
Yes.
just sometimes, most of the time, don't have the guts to admit it.
Yes.
And so we want it
Yes.
to come from somebody else. So that's the thing. Acknowledge and just take that reflection, pause and reflection thing. It works for a lot. It's like the one thing that is able to put everything else into its own place.
Perfect. So, Coach, in closing for this one, for me, what I'm really, really taking away is understanding the difference between connecting and just being close. And that in connecting, my level of consciousness needs to be different, it needs to be more aware. And I really need to be open to being in this space and being curious and not shoot to the end that we see where other people are.
Mhm. And it's very important, coach, and I like that you are highlighting, because it's this confusion of closeness for connection that really causes the insecurities, the questioning, where you are, where you stand with this person, which comes as the red flags that we're talking about. And just on that level of consciousness, but be aware, when it's good, admit that, damn, it's good. When it's not so good, then admit, today is not so good. And it's that thing that stay with what comes and allow what comes to just come and be. Don't try and always force that high intensity, that erotic energy to be there all the time, because that's also the other thing that takes away from you being conscious and actually contributing to the relationship with substance and stuff that's going to help you sustain the relationship. When you are so focused on keeping that passion alive, not alive, you are wanting to keep the passion the same.
Yeah.
And the passion is going to change and morph as the relationship changes. So when you are trying to keep things the same as they were initially, that becomes a problem. And that's where you disconnect with your consciousness, where you just need to be aware. Things are no longer the same. Yesterday it was high, it was up there. Today, not so much. Now I'm starting to recognize that I actually don't like his walk. No, man, she just has too much hair. And, allow all of these things to be and to happen, because you don't need to figure out where what fits how and when right now, but just be aware of it. And that's how you start to
Super.
build the connection.
Perfect. So thank you, Coach, for your time and taking us through this big, for me, it's a big stage because this is where we miss it all. Or this is where we get it all as well. But it's one of those where awareness is what I'm taking as the major thing to have. So your closing
Always
shots,
a pleasure.
anything?
No, enjoy it, man. Enjoy the ride. It's even if it's a mini roller coaster in the big roller coaster, still enjoy it for what it is. It's a beautiful experience to have. It's just that sometimes we're in a rush. So take your time. And I love the quote that says, we overestimate with what we can achieve in a short time, like a year, and we overestimate what we can achieve in a short space of time, and we underestimate what we can achieve in long term. So when you're thinking of a relationship, always think long term. Don't overestimate what can happen in the next 6 months to a year, and you want to shrink everything and it must happen now. All these 90-day rules, all these things and these bars and these, just shy away from that. Sometimes I say it in a joking way, but I mean it. When I say to some of my clients, you know what, when you want your relationship to really last, when you want to make it last, and when you are sure that it's made to last, be willing to be a fool. Be willing to be an idiot when everybody else looks at you, because those that become a fool for love are the ones that actually experience the love that everybody else is wanting and talking about. You actually get to live it. So be a fool. If it makes you a fool to think and allow yourself to be with a person for 3 years and not see progress or see where this relationship is going, in the sense of all these commitments that we want that are official, then so be it. Bottom line is, when somebody is getting divorced 3 years down the line, you are walking towards the altar for the rest of your life.
Noted, Coach. Let's be willing to explore.
Yes. Give yourself
Bye.
time. Bye. Hi, family, and we are back. We are still on our lasting love series. Make it last, or is it made to last? And this week, we are discussing the second stage in our cycles of love. And I'm happy to
Mm.
have Coach B joining me so that we can dive deeper into this, get the clarity that we need, be able to make decisions and gain the awareness that we need in order for us to flourish in love, make it last, and make sure that
Mm.
it is made to last. Hello, Coach. Thank you for joining me.
Hello. Hello, coach. Honestly, I'm learning a lot as we are doing the series and also just reflecting on who we become when we move into relationships, which for me is always the most interesting part. But yes, let's see if we are made to last or we are willing to do the work to make it last.
Perfect. And today you are leading us into the second stage of a
Oh,
relationship cycle, which is when we get into
yes.
the doubt and the denial. So when the honeymoon phase is over,
Over.
what happens with us? What happens to us? What's going on? Save us, please.
Listen. For me, I think I love this part more because sometimes we need to do most work here. And sometimes we find people who come to coaching are in this stage as well, where we're doubting everything, where we think we made a mistake. And we now need to take a step back and understand what are the things we were hoping for, what are the things that have happened that we seem to doubt so much, and who have we become along that journey, and imposing on other people what we want and having them impose on us as well. So really checking all those things. But the one part before I move on to the stage is to check our value system. And we don't emphasize enough the importance of your value system in who you are, how you show up, how you grow and desire to grow. And a value system, for example, if you I'm going to call it value growth or value learning, value education in any form, be it self, be it formal, and you are in a relationship with someone who does not, that already starts to create a certain conflict, a certain doubt, and a certain expectation which may not be met. And those are the things that we then start to take with us when we move on to this second stage. Because in this second stage of doubting and being in denial, we zoom in on the things we don't like. We're zooming in on the differences, coach, where we're like, actually, I really don't like how you think. And that is something very deep because a person thinks the way they have been programmed, the way they have been conditioned in their own, I'm going to call it community, surrounding, parenting, religion. But when we say the way you think on a certain matter is something that is giving me discomfort, we really need to take a step back in terms of understanding ourselves, understanding the person, and understanding how we have come to merge to begin with. What conversations we were allowing ourselves to have or not to have because we're either in the closeness phase versus the connecting phase, and really being open, firstly, to shifting perspectives, but also to not come in to change someone, creating the power struggle that we see, and coming in with a perspective of learning, with a perspective, what do you normally say, called curiosity about the other person, because here everybody's fighting for survival. It's clashing upon belief, upon imposing societal norms. And here we are really saying, I cannot do this, I will not do this. And where we are missing the opportunity to learn and grow with each other.
Oh, wow. So and I love how you touch on we are all just wanting to survive at this stage. So and it's hard, especially when you're thinking how we were so over there, we were rolling in the hay, you know. The rain wasn't cold a few weeks ago, a few months ago. It was romantic. Now he expects you to stand under the rain in an umbrella. You meant type of situation. So the biggest trap, coach, what would you say is the biggest, not even trap, the biggest trigger um, for us at this stage that makes it difficult for us to open ourselves to the curiosity, for us to move a step closer towards the love instead of closer and deeper into survival mode? What would you
Mm.
say accounts or contributes the most to that?
The one thing which I always ask people to check the agenda we have. All of us come in with an agenda, and sometimes the agenda we actually don't communicate the agenda because we're hoping this is a means to that end of the agenda we have. And when you look at the work that we normally need to do, I always ask, for me to be right, someone must be wrong. So if we're still coming in with the mindset of looking for rightness and then finding someone wrong, there is no way we're going to coexist in a manner that is nurturing, nourishing, and fulfilling for both parties involved. Because there is the prisoner and there's the prison warder who must look at the prisoner and remind the prisoner of their guilt, remind the prisoner of how wrong they are. And normally, because of what we said in the first episodes, that where we came from, we never cleaned up the mess. We came in with, I will never go through this again. I won't do this again. So we come in protecting those things or looking for the signs of those things in order to protect ourselves again. But what we actually do is put someone else in prison for the prison we are coming from. And that takes us back into survival and not fully engaging where we are authentically for what it is and for who we are and for who the person we're with is in this current moment.
Wow, that's deep. That is so deep. So what do we do? What do we do? That just I
Oh,
need that. I need to sit with that for a minute.
so
So what do
here,
we do, coach?
no, here it's real. Here it's real because you need to have a balanced view of you. I always look at myself and ask myself, who died and made me God of this relationship? Who died and made me God of what is right, right now? So that I keep open in conversation, I keep open in my view, because honestly, the truth is the view is what we are looking to shift. The view or the perception is what we are looking to really align ourselves along the journey of interacting and connecting with other people. So here we are looking at what is the conflict and what is the root cause of this conflict? What is the root cause of this misalignment for whatever case it is? And do we have the skills to go through the conflict resolution stages that we need to? Do we have the skills to communicate, coach? Because really, I find that communication is one of the hardest things, especially when our emotions are engaged, involved, committed, biased. And without the ability to communicate effectively and without the conflict resolution stage or skills, we are not really able to be present with what is happening. We somehow are bringing everything that has happened to here and now. And from there can never be any agreement. And from there can never be any alignment. So we either move in our toxic, um, what to call it, a way of being in the relationship, and we either move into punishing each other, we move into putting each other in boxes, and going through these cycles where we achieve nothing but we are screaming at each other or we are punishing each other, we go back again. And it becomes a pattern which doesn't help us grow or doesn't help us move out of the stage as soon as we would if we had the right skills and the right help.
Wow, so that's very powerful, coach. Especially when when you mention the cycles,
Mm,
because I think that is probably the biggest indicator of, listen, I am at this stage of doubt and denial. The cycles and the unwanted patterns of relationship drama that we start experiencing. And also, so I'm getting a sense of maybe this is the stage where we actually get to now deal with and open that suitcase of the I will never ever again and the I will always, and so maybe at this point it's time to open that suitcase and start unpacking some of these things, because it's at this point where we would start to discover that, okay, same script, different cast type of
Yeah, always.
situation. So yeah, I think maybe what's the first point of action when we realize that, okay, this is where we are, before we can even get to that point of saying, how do we resolve the conflict? How do we even realize this is where we are, and gaining and using the tools, because it requires a level of acceptance as well, to say this is where we are. So how do we get to that point of accepting where we are?
First part is our awareness of what is in our suitcase that we are bringing here. And in that awareness, is what I'm bringing here growing me in who I am and how I am? And is that nourishing and growing the environment, the situation, and the person that I'm interacting with? Because normally the lack of awareness is we find ourselves in a corner where we are both in a ring and we are both protecting, we are both setting boundaries. And instead of understanding this wall of Jericho that I'm building, why do I need it in the first place? So these boundaries, which are supposed to protect me, are they really protecting me or keeping me inside as a prisoner myself? So what is my suitcase having? And from that suitcase, if my lens is through the things that I came with through my suitcase, how is that helping me now? Or how is that actually crushing me now? And how am I now living my current reality based on that awareness of the past if I haven't dealt with it? Because normally we haven't dealt with the things we need to deal with, and we want the next person to protect us from those things, but those things had not happened here, they happened somewhere else.
Mm. Wow, coach. I love that. And it makes me think of something I heard before that says you need to get over your ex in order to be ready for your next. So it sounds to me like if you didn't have an opportunity to get over your ex before you got in with your next, this would be a perfect time for you to go through that process again of saying, let me get over my ex and be ready for this next that I am already in. And that's a powerful thing, I think. And also from what you're saying, coach, I'm getting also that this is the stage where we need to step back from this being one, and also deal with the awareness of me, and also deal with the knowing of me first.
What I
And
bring.
so get to that level of now we even explore the individuality of each of us within the relationship. So that's what I'm also getting from you.
Very, very important, because in that there is no agreement that can happen. There is no behavioral awareness that can shift if we are truthfully not aware of us as individuals in this partnership. The why we need. I used to have a client who always would leave relationships when they don't call, when they don't text. And one day I asked, why do you need that so much? And they took time to answer and really understand, what does it validate in me when this happens? Because sometimes we force people to validate our need without really questioning, why is this a need to begin with?
Oh wow.
So that
No.
we can liberate ourselves and liberate them.
Wow. No, coach, you've unpacked it. Mina, I'm here. And
Thank you.
listen, right now I have no doubts about what doubt and denial is all about. So thank you so much for that. Any final words
Oh,
in closing as to how we can prepare ourselves for this stage, for those that are going into new relationships, for those that have
Oh,
been there and that has been in this
mm.
reality. How do you start navigating your way out? And yeah, just what's next?
I think the one thing which is important is to be open to not everybody, actually, especially our families, our partners, our friends. People don't need to think the way we think. People don't need to agree with us all the time. However, we need to keep room for everybody to exist and thrive and grow and be seen, valued in a way that enhances who they are. So it's really important when we move into the stage that we have learned to not hold on to our way of being the only way that is right. We need to really come at it with six in a different view looks like a nine, and in it, and that allows us the flexibility to engage, that allows us the flexibility to be here now and not mean other things because we didn't agree today. Me not agreeing with you today doesn't mean I do not love you or doesn't mean I love you any less. However, it does mean that we both have a view, and in that view we both need to understand and allow each other to exist in a way that enhances and nourishes both of us.
Love it. I'm
Thank you,
happy. I don't want to say
coach.
anything. Let's just leave it. Me not agreeing with you today doesn't mean I love you any less. Thank you, coach. That's it for